in his budget presentation, midterm budget presentation, which, by the way, I was impressed by in terms of the clarity with which he addressed some issues, that his government has to borrow $100 million. Now, this has raised a hue and an outcry from the opposition, and I am seeking to identify the areas of their contention. But many Bahamians are concerned about the state of our borrowing. So could you explain what prompted, what has driven this measure, and set the history of it so that we can understand it as well?
Certainly, absolutely. I think Bahamians became originally a bit concerned about the level of debt in the country upon the passage of the budget, where it was announced that there would be $500-some million in borrowing to cover the deficit. Acknowledging that, components of that included $100 million over budget on the road works, on a capital expenditure that was not budgeted for, that would have to be made up. And so there were unanticipated expenses coming into office that we would have to make provisions for. The most recent ones that encompass this borrowing that was announced yesterday include unpaid checks and wire transfers, essentially unpaid bills of the government in excess of $63 million. A 52-week job program, which we originally supported in the House of Assembly when it was brought by the former administration, but it was overspent by $23 million, more than budgeted. Coming into office, that could not be an anticipated expense. That program was overspent considerably, and so we then had to honor the obligations of the government under that program. There was also a negotiated lump sum payment to the teachers union in the amount in excess of $10 million, almost $11 million. That was unbudgeted for, that was agreed to, and that we had to, as a responsible government, meet those obligations as well. And those are key elements that comprise this $100 million of expenses that we met that were not budgeted. That's why I think the leader of opposition yesterday was very disingenuous.
Yes, he said, but you voted for it.
Yeah, no, we voted for borrowing, but these expenses are directly related to bills that were not in the budget, and therefore bills that were not borrowed for. So I think it was a rather misleading statement by the leader of the opposition. We have the utmost confidence in Minister Halkitis and the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Finance and the technical team. In fact, he would make the point, and it's a very good point, that if you look at our expenditures to date for this fiscal year, they're actually below what was budgeted for.
Yes.
So we are actually spending, as of today, less than we budgeted that we would spend on a reoccurring expenditure. Mm-hmm. It is the revenue issues that concern the government. We've collected less revenue for a variety of reasons. The economy is poor, and therefore the shops and the merchants are not performing as well, and therefore they import less goods, and therefore government revenues are down because of customs. And one of the key points I think that we have to pay attention to the Prime Minister yesterday is the initiatives that are underway to, one, find new revenue sources without putting tax burdens and unnecessary taxes on the Bahamian people, and to make it more efficient to collect that revenue so we can collect more of what is actually owed to the government. So those are some key points I think coming out of the debate yesterday. It's a full balanced approach by the government. Certainly we want to manage expenditures. I think that's the responsible thing to do in this environment. We want to grow and maximize revenues, which is what the Prime Minister spoke about yesterday. But we also want to concentrate on growing the economy, because that creates more opportunity.
There's a criticism that is leveled by many who are sympathetic to your cause, namely that you never really detailed the economy, the strength, the weaknesses of the economy that you met in May 2012, and that whether it was from with an eye on the international rating agencies, or whether it was just difficulty in coming to terms with what existed there, that you did a disservice. That is, this PLP administration did a terrible disservice to itself by leaving for too long the expectations of the people without bringing them sometimes cruelly to terms with the realities of what existed on the ground.
You know, that critique may be valid. One thing that we really try to do coming to office is, one, get an assessment of where we are, but then to try to initiate our plans and our programs for the country. As we look at revenue collection, which is indicative of the state of the economy, and going through the first few months, we saw that revenues were down for the government. That's directly related to the state of the economy. So we may have not vocalized that as well as we should have. But the economy is challenged. But we also believe, coming to office, we experienced those challenges economically, but we believe that our programs and our philosophies are working. In fact, the recent unemployment statistics would demonstrate that. Within 6 months, 2,000 jobs were created, and the unemployment rate dropped from 14.7% to 14%. You know, we consider that as a good achievement by this government in the last 6 months, to try to right the ship in an era of growing unemployment and to add jobs within our first 6 months. Now, certainly 2,000 jobs, we want it to be 20,000 jobs. But it is indicative of a change in direction of the economy of the country, and the confidence that we have in the economic team creating those policies. Certainly we heard from the Prime Minister yesterday announcing a large project in Grand Bahama, which we hope to add 1,000 permanent jobs by the end of the year, and 200 to 300 construction jobs over the course of the next 6 to 8 months, as we get the Reef Hotel up to standards of Sunwing Resorts, who are investing in that hotel. So,
but have you set the stage for the public education of this country? You know, I am an avid reader of newspapers and periodicals, and I like, from time to time, besides watching my Western channels and my sports, I like to watch some serious commentary coming from knowledgeable people on an array of topics, and in particular the economy of this world of ours. And we hear from the economists that the European Union, one of the most significant groupings of countries, first world countries of the world, remain in recession for the rest of 2013.
Well, the United Kingdom was just downgraded.
The United Kingdom is downgraded. The United States of America is limping out of recession, if we can even say so with any real authority. But we never hear discussed, I think, appropriately, what is happening in the world, so that Bahamians can relate their condition to the rest of the world.
I think that's a good observation, and you point out Europe and the challenges in Europe, the challenges in countries like Spain, the United Kingdom, Greece. All throughout Europe there's challenges, and we also see the challenges in the United States, the forecast saying they're not coming out of the recession as quickly as anticipated. And yes, those are negative effects on the state of the economy globally and reciprocally the Bahamas itself. But a government is also elected to govern, and we have to go out, and part of our mandate is finding opportunities for growth. It's easy to sit there, and we acknowledge it. The world economy is sluggish, and it has an effect on our economy. And our economy is very highly dependent, whether it be tourism or financial services or foreign direct investment, in the condition of the world economy. But we look to, for instance, Latin America. And my ministry is very active in Latin America, and I know the Minister of Tourism is very active in Latin America. That is a growth continent in our hemisphere. So as a responsible government, we recognize the slowdowns in the economy globally, and particularly Europe and the United States not rebounding as quickly. But we also see the growth in countries like Brazil, Panama, Mexico, and other areas of substantial economic growth in the region. And you have to adjust your focus.
How do you answer your critics, Honorable